So this is what it's like inside my 2012 BMW 550i, powered by the infamous n63 V8 engine. And this is my 3-month ownership report so far. So let's see, how much money have I spent repairing or maintaining this car so far? Well, so far $83 for one oil change, $0 for any repairs so far. So far it's been good. It's not given me any warning lights. It's not given me any check engine lights. It's not had any issues. It just starts right up and it goes. So, and this is considered to be high mileage. It's about 88,000 miles, and I'm not going to speak too soon, but right now I think it's going along pretty well, and I have money set aside, so if we have any issues with it in the future, I can fix it. But I don't know, hey, it's a great car. It's a great bang for the money too. It's a great buy for the money. I think for under $15,000 or under $17,000 for you to get a 400 horsepower twin turbocharged V8 sports car from BMW, I think it's a great deal if you do your research, if you do it right, and if you get it from the right source, if it was taken care of by the previous owners. That's very crucial. How well was that car taken care of by the previous owners? So this particular engine, the n63, the original n63, not the n63 TU, which is after 2014. This is the original, supposedly problematic version of this engine. It had issues with the valve stem seals, which meant that oil could leak into the combustion chambers and then get burnt and sent out the tailpipe. You had issues with the timing chain. You had issues with the injectors, issue with spark plugs, issue with coolant leaks, issue with turbo problems. I think it's the turbo, there's some plastic pipes that lead into the turbo that can crack, and then you leak all your boost. You have a decreased performance, although the engine will still run. And the most crucial thing is the oil burning. The oil burning is is a thing to watch out for. You don't want it burning tons of oil. You need to keep your eye on the oil level, and you need to also, from what I've seen, the research I've done, and what I've experienced over the last 3 months, is that if you can keep the engine oil inside this car very pristine and very fresh and very pure, then it'll be fine. That can alleviate a lot of the problems that were reported with this car, because what was happening is, a lot of owners, they were not really maintaining it properly. They thought the BMW they could just buy a car and it would just be the same as buying a Toyota, or they could treat it the same way as a Honda or a Toyota. Well, that's not the case. No, you have to be, it's not a car for beginners, and it's not really a car that's meant for people who don't really understand cars. I think people who don't even know what oil does, those are the types of people who are owning these cars, and that's where a lot of the problems are coming from. They were waiting over 10 or 15,000 miles to do an oil change. That's not good. So you don't want to do that. With this car, the turbos and the feed lines that run into the turbos and all that, they need very pristine oil. I think that's essentially what it is. The valve stem seals, again, if the oil gets very old and its viscosity rating decreases, they don't get as much lubrication as they would if it was fresh oil. And at 10 or 15,000 miles, that oil starts turning into this black tar stuff. So it'll run through the turbos and everything. That's not good for the engine. It just isn't. This engine is known to be very sensitive to oil, so you need to watch out, make sure it's not burning any oil. So if you see any blue and white smoke coming out the tailpipe, that right there's a definite sign. This particular car, I had someone rev it up, I stood right next to the tailpipe, I didn't see a single trace of white or blue smoke coming out. And the mechanic, when he did the oil change at 2,500 miles from me, the first oil change that I did, he measured the oil that came out and said, that's pretty much full. You're not missing a quart or anything. So this car really is not burning oil. It's not burning much oil at all. It was just a little bit lower than what he put in 2,500 miles originally. So this car, it really is like a hit or miss. You really got to do your research, and you really need to look at the Carfax and look at the maintenance records for this car. This particular car is a stick shift, a 2012 F10 550i with the V8 twin turbo and the stick shift. That's rare. It's hard to get a hold of, and I mean, there's only apparently a few of them in the entire country, and I mean, I'm really glad I was able to get a hold of one. You know, I mean, that too, I'm not that much of a stick shift driver, but, you know, I haven't driven one in a long time. You know, this is like one of the first stick shift cars I've ever driven. Actually, I'd say it's the second. So, you know, basically, you need to watch the oil level, because what was happening is a lot of people were like I said, driving it past 10,000 miles without doing an oil change, and they were basically running their engines out of oil. And sadly, BMW doesn't have dipsticks, so they had no way to check the oil. So they were just completely running. Yeah, if you're gonna do like a 15,000 mile oil change interval, not on this car, not on the N63. Don't do it. You need to do your research on that. Don't let it run that far without doing an oil change. And because if they were running their engines completely out of oil, and then they were seizing the engines, so then they needed a new engine completely. That is what you need to watch out for. Just watch the oil level. Look out for white smoke coming out the tailpipe. There was a lawsuit, or class action lawsuit, against this particular engine. But you know, so a BMW apparently will help you with it. I mean, if you completely cook your engine, if you're having white smoke coming out the tailpipe, apparently they'll fix it for free. Or if they have to swap the entire engine out with a new one, they'll do it. Apparently, at a reduced cost, they'll pay like 80% of it or something like that. I need to look at it a little bit closer, but it's I mean, they will try and rectify the situation with this engine if you're an owner, and if you have less than 120,000 miles. So right now I'm at 88,000 miles. This is not bad at all. I'm still well under the 120,000 miles that BMW says they'll try and cover. So those are the issues. I mean, it's a little history of this type of car. I mean, this is the successor to the original n62 V8 engine, which is the naturally aspirated V8 engine, which is found in the previous BMW 550 series. 550s, you can find these engines actually not just in the 550, but also in an X5 50i. You can find it in a X6 or a X5M, or that's an S63, but you can find it in a 650i and a 750i. So that's their 6 series and also the 7 series. They also run the same engine. So this problem applies to any 2011 to 2013 550i, or 550i, 650i, or 750i, if it has the n63 V8. Like I said, you know, when this engine works, it's great. It provides tons of power. I mean, it's like a jet engine. It really sounds like a jet engine above 4,000 RPM. You really hear the turbos start, you know, spooling up, and then it's like it pins you back in your seat. It's like exponential acceleration. I mean, yes, performance-wise, it's not lacking. I mean, it's got 400 horsepower. It'll pull, and that's what I mean. If you can get that type of power and performance, and if it's well taken care of, you can get it under $15,000 or under $18,000. That's a great deal. You're sitting in a 400 horsepower sports car. You know, you're going to be one of the fastest cars on the road. And yeah, I mean, this thing, it flies right. Like, this is great for the highway. I mean, you put your foot down, it just flies. It's like warp drive, flies past everyone. So, you know, I mean, I highly recommend this car if, like I said, you are a car enthusiast and you know what you're doing, and you have gotten it from a good source. You have done your research on the previous owner. You've looked at the Carfax. You need to read every entry that is on that Carfax. You need to look at the intervals of the oil changes. And you know, the previous owner that had this car, I could see he was doing oil changes every 3,000 to 5,000 miles. Oil change, coolant change, other various checks. But those two things, the crucial things, if you can do that, this engine can last up to 200,000 miles from what I've heard. Actually, there's other people who have this engine who have taken it up to 200,000 miles. That's a lot. I mean, at least for a V8 BMW, that's a lot. The previous V8 BMW had issues with the this alternator bracket gasket leaking, because they have an alternator bracket which does what it sounds. It just is just a place to mount the alternator. That's how it is on every other car, but not with the old BMW V8s. They would run oil through the alternator bracket, and that gasket would you know, chip and break, and then oil would start pouring out of that weak spot. Again, you know, that was a bad idea, and you know, they did away with that after receiving complaints in this particular model. But this model also has its own issues. It has its own issues, but like I said, if it comes from a good source and you maintain it and you keep the oil in the engine very pristine and pure, it's a great car. Right now it's idling. I don't know if you've noticed that it's on, but it's on right now. It's idling. It's not producing really any vibration. If you want to look at the camera, if you want to look at the steering wheel right there, it's really not shake, because I have the camera mounted just on my GPS holder right now, and it's producing almost no vibration. Yeah, I'm sitting here, I forgot that it was even on to begin with, because it is a very smooth running engine when it works. If it's not smooth running, if it's you know, kind of shaking or idling roughly, that is a sign that you have injector failures. You may have 1 or 2 injectors failed, and these injectors, they're not cheap. That's another complaint with these cars. You have a misfiring cylinder, and you have either a spark plug that's gone bad, that's fouled, or you have a injector that's clogged. The spark plugs are not too expensive, but the injectors are very expensive on this car. They're $400 each, and you need 8 of them because it's a V8. It's 1 per cylinder. So for a V8 car, well, it's 8 times 400, so it's like $3,200 plus labor. It could be about $4 grand to fix it. So fix all of the injectors. But if you can just get away with doing 1, if you can pinpoint which cylinder the misfire is coming from, and you can just fix that one, I think you can get away with it. You can kind of get away with it cheaply. I mean, nothing on this car is cheap, but you can get away with it without spending tons of money. If you can find, you know, a mechanic that's not the dealership that knows how to work on BMWs, yeah, you can probably get it done. Other than that, you know, I was betting that a stick shift owner, at least here in the US, was an enthusiast. I'm betting that I was betting that he knew what he was doing, at least for this car previously. So I'm just gonna keep my hopes up, and I'll keep you guys updated on the reliability of this car and how it's holding up. Right now it's been as reliable as a Toyota. I mean, it starts right up, no problems. You can drive it, go hard on it if you want to, and bring it back, and that's it. I mean, everything works. I'm happy. Right, I'll show you guys the engine. That's hot. There it is, the n63 in all its glory. I mean, it looks like a very solid engine. I mean, BMW's presented it very nicely, but you know, as always with BMW, it has its issues. Alright, so this is the exterior of the 550. It's a very sharp looking car. I got mine with very few scratches and dents. I mean, I think my previous owner really did a good job taking care of this thing. Yeah, it's got very few scratches and dents. The wheel, I need to wash that because, you know, it does get a little bit dirty from the brakes. Brakes on the front, they're very large, so they produce a lot of brake dust. I got Michelin Pilot Sports put on this one. You know, they're rated up to over 186 miles an hour, but I don't know. I don't think I'd really want to bother trying to go that fast. Right, here's the interior. There's the stick shift in all its glory. 6 gears and 3 pedals. It's kind of rare to find this car with that type of setup, but hey, I mean, I found one. I managed to find it. Don't know. Guess I just got lucky because I found it locally here too. So that's about it. That's all I have to say about this car. I'll keep you guys updated on any things that happen with it. So far, so good. And I'll see you guys in the next video. And as always, you know, please like, share, subscribe, and recommend this video to whoever. So, you know, at least I can get the word out to other people that, hey, you know, don't believe every horror story you read about this engine. Yes, it needs some extra care, but with that extra care, it'll take care of you. And that's all it is. See you guys in the next video. Peace.